besides knowing security, I have to be able to be a salesman and marketer. How do I get people to really want to listen to it, but appreciate it? So they don't think, oh, security is just trying to make us do this, or security is giving us a bad thing. I want them to really appreciate it and say, oh, you know, Steve and Hulk, they're really looking out after us, so that they really do the right thing. And it makes my job easier because I have less back doors.
This is a Security Weekly production. Security Weekly is a resource of Cyber Risk Alliance.
The Cybersecurity Collaborative, in conjunction with Cyber Reason, is proud to present CISO Stories. Each week, CISO Stories takes a deep dive on security leadership. The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit securityweekly.com/CSC. I am your host, Todd Fitzgerald, and this week we welcome Steve Lentz, Cloud Security Director at Stream. I met Steve while he was doing excellent security awareness work while Chief Security Officer at Samsung Research America.
I started in IT like anybody else, and then I was at a company, and then IT was doing security at the time. We just did it more, and then I actually got my first job doing full-time security at NAI, which is, McAfee now, and I just really loved it because it was just so dynamic. Back then it changed maybe on a yearly basis, a lot of challenges. Now it changes every minute. It's so dynamic to try to stay a step ahead of the bad guys. If you try to stay a step ahead of the bad guys, it makes it so dynamic and so great to be in, because you got to learn so much. You can't just sit idle and let the bad guys, latch you. You got to be, proactive, and that's what I like about it. It's so ever changing, so much.
Sure. And you're clearly passionate about this field, and you talked about cybersecurity awareness. And as we're sitting here in the interview, I see you have one of your props with you.
Yes.
That goes with you. So why don't you walk us through what you talked about in the article, and what that prop is that I'm referring to.
So the reason how I got a prop, well, I've always worn Hawaiian shirts myself to stick out since I started back in Seagate eons ago, and that way when you just walk by, the Hawaiian shirt's very colorful, and people always do it. Back then the CEO of Hawaii always, from Seagate, always wore one on Friday, but I wore one every day just to do it, so that way people, I got to remember, I got to ask Steve this and like that. But then I got into my prop, which is my dog Hulk, is because I was invited to do a webinar out in San Francisco, 3 o'clock, last one of the day. How am I going to keep everybody's attention? So I just got creative. I go, you know what? I'm going to use my twin. We wear matching Hawaiian shirts. So he did the presentation. I had him do all the slides. And I think I had my actual security team. They just put their feet up and he would kind of run right. Guys, I'm serious. It's a security threat. We got a standing ovation from it. And the CEO of one of the companies came and said, that was the best presentation we ever saw, but the real star was your dog. Ever since then, when I've done webinars for Checkpoint or whoever, Secure World, a lot of times, they do, I always did dog. And just like today, someone goes, we remember, but we remember the dog. So it just happens, people do it because security's had such a bad name, because before we'd always say no, or we'd make it hard for employees to do something. So I want to try to enable them, but I want to build them to appreciate security. And with my boy Hulk here, they appreciate more. So anytime like I send out a security awareness bulletin email, it's just not bullet points. It starts with him doing the introduction. And I get so many thanks. Steve, thanks for looking out after it. People read it. And that's what they do.
So they probably look forward to seeing the dog.
Yeah, I think they do, because he's the one who does the introduction so that they read it. But, the picture does it because, a different pose, different Hawaiian shirt. But then they'll actually read the security stuff and go, thanks for looking out after us. But he's the eye catcher for it, and it really works. It's a good marketing tool.
So when you say he does it, what is Hulk's role in the presentation?
Even his name tag at work, it says Steve Lentz and Hulk, head of security. So he's always done, he gets a badge, everything, name tag. We were invited to do a customer thing over at Cisco years ago, and then I was running late and they called me, Steve, we're waiting for you, but we're really waiting for Hulk. I got there and they had a name tag even for Hulk. So everybody expects him because of the shirt thing, but he's really friendly. But I think it just makes people want to listen to security more, Besides knowing security, I have to be able to be a salesman and marketer. How do I get people to really want to listen to it, but appreciate it? So they don't think, oh, security is just trying to make us do this, or security is giving us a bad thing. I want them to really appreciate it and say, oh, Steve and Hulk, they're really looking out after us, so that they really do the right thing. And it makes my job easier because I have less back doors.
Well, I can see you clearly get the attention, with the...
Gets so much attention. So see, he's like the lead-in for everything. Then we talk about something about security. Another time I was at Vegas with him at Black Hat. Same thing, in the elevator. He's the one that started. Next thing I'm doing is talking about passwords, how to do secure passwords. Then we're in the lobby of the Mandalay Bay, and it started with a married couple. Next thing I know, hundreds of people clapping, patting me on the back, petting him. And then I got a manager coming over and say, hey, thank you for taking care of our customers. When I can make just regular people smile and appreciate that, we're looking out after from security. We're not just doing it for a company. I try to do it for them as well, for anybody. That makes me smile when I can bring somebody appreciating security.
So what sort of tips would you give somebody that's starting out a security awareness program to make it effective?
Good question. Find a way to get the word across without people just ignoring you. Like I said, when I did it in Vegas, last one of the day, people get up, they're going to leave, last presentation, they're bored and stuff. You have to find a way to sell it. So, like I said, I know security, so security, but we have to figure out a way to sell it and market it, so people really take it seriously instead of taking it for granted, read it and then ignore it. We don't want that. We want them to really do it, so it makes our jobs easier in the long run. So I would say anybody starting out is find a way to really be enthusiastic about it first, really research it to stay ahead of the bad guys. Don't try to stay even with it. Try to stay that one step ahead, but find a way to get, to make the employees appreciate security, not just, thinking that you're looking out after the company. Let them know that you're also looking out after them. That's the key. If they realize that you're looking out after them as well, it's that you can pass it on to your family and friends, they pay attention more and they really appreciate it so much.
So what do you think are the top issues today that we should be educating our workforce for cybersecurity?
I would say a lot of it is all the social media stuff. It's easy to get. So many people put their entire history on LinkedIn or Facebook, especially Facebook and Instagram, like their full address, everything. And then while they're on vacation, posting photos, then guess who's breaking into their house, right? We always still hear about passwords. It's been years now, they keep talking about biometrics or passwordless or using like YubiKeys, things like that, but it makes it too hard. You got to figure out a way to make a very rememberable but super strong password. And then Alec Warwick, the guy that created the passphrase back then, 2 years ago, he said, it's not as strong as I thought it was. And it's not. I've actually taken it and approved it where I can make it in my login password for my work computer is 2.9 trillion years, centuries, not years, centuries to hack, to get into. But it's very memorable. So that's what I teach.
So how do you create a password like that?
Well, the simple way to do it is still use a passphrase or a word that you know. But then add multiple levels of authentication. Like I'll put a random number in there, I'll put some special characters if it's allowed, and then I use a key. The key is the name of the site. So let's say I have a phrase, a good example, I love dogs. I do misspelling and do different things. So instead of a L, maybe I use a 7, upside down 7. I do things like that. And then the key is, let's say you bank at Chase or you use LinkedIn and Facebook, right? Pick 2 or 3 letters out of that. The first, fourth, and last letter, so let's say LKN for LinkedIn. Put that somewhere in the middle, the end, the front, however you want to do it with a number. And I would say always try to do 12. The bad guys can hack up to 12 really good now. So some sites still allow only your 12. Some do 15 or 16, but the more you can do it, but you think of that phrase. So I have a phrase for my banking I just use, a phrase for work, and then a phrase for all my home stuff and my other sites. So it's easy to remember. And then I change something every year, even if, like I said, it takes hundreds of billions or trillions of centuries, not years, just centuries. I still change something. And then the question is, but what if they don't use a lot of special characters? A lot of sites still don't. Chase just did 3 years ago. So let's say if I use a parenthesis, 2 parentheses or something in it, so I'll go LP for left parenthesis, RP for right parenthesis. So that way I'm not changing it, I'm just spelling it out instead of using special characters. And then that makes it super long, but still memorable. And those things actually become more complicated than if you use special characters because there's so many letters, Same thing if you use right bracket, left bracket, or whatever, You just use initials for it so you remember it. It's so easy to do, and people go, I didn't realize it was so easy.
The article this podcast is based upon can be viewed in the best-selling cybersecurity leadership book, CISO Compass, Navigating Cybersecurity Leadership Challenges with Insights from Pioneers, available at Amazon.com and other booksellers.
I know I used to actually write a PIN number on the back of my debit cards and credit cards, but the PIN number was not the PIN number, but it was a mathematical calculation from another number. So the number would be meaningless to anybody else who would see it. Yeah. But what was always amazing to me is when I would turn the card over to look at what the PIN number was for that particular card, I never had anybody question me at the counter to say, you really shouldn't be writing your PIN number on the back of your cards. It wasn't my PIN number, but
I think we just take it for granted. But look how many people have their accounts taken over or their credit cards, especially if you order stuff online. I mean, I've had my credit card hacked several times because I do orders through workers from Home Depot and stuff like that, and they charge it, but luckily I use Chase and they catch it and stuff like that. Then I go change the password, but it's because of the PIN, you give them the PIN and then they have it. But at least they can't get into the accounts because the password is so strong. But like I said, no matter what, I still change passwords once a year, something in there, my phrase number or whatever, just to make it. But it's just, I don't think we're going to get rid of passwords for a while. So if people can figure out how to do it to protect themselves and then teach their kids, especially with all the social sites, I think it's just a good way to begin until we can figure out what's better than passwords.
So what sort of training are you doing? Are you doing gamification or videos or, how are you rolling out training in your organization?
I do, in the organization, I do, I'm getting ready to do our security awareness training for 2020. So I just put together the PowerPoint. Mainly it's just PowerPoint where I lead with Hulk, always has a picture of him in a different pose, different shirt. He's the one that does the heading. And then, a couple bullet points about things. Then where I just talk enthusiastically about, examples or how to do this, look out after this. I talk about, how cybercrime is more lucrative now than, all the drug trade combined, looking for BEC scams, give them samples from, different bank types. Apple's a big one, everybody thinks Apple's secure, but it's not. And so I show them from our stuff, even at work, where all the malware is mainly on the Macs. It's not the Windows anymore, because the bad guys are always looking for the easiest way in. What's the easiest way in? Mobile devices, IoT, Mac, and Linux, because there was really no good endpoint stuff for it. Macs are finally getting it, but a lot of companies don't do it because Macs are consumer, they're not an enterprise.
What should people be looking for on their mobile devices?
Well, I always tell everybody, if you have a mobile phone, don't use Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal Pay, because you don't know if your phone's been compromised. When I was at Samsung, we rolled out Checkpoint's Sandblast Mobile to 750 corporate phones. We found 23 that were exfiltrating sensitive data to the bad guys, personal and company. Another 5 or 6 that were jailbroken or rooted that they didn't know. So I don't trust the mobile devices, the phone, even if it's got the Lookout or something. It's got to have an enterprise grade, anti-malware exploit type thing to look at to try to find the actual bad stuff. Because the bad guys, they're going to take their time. They don't care if it's metadata or whatever. They'll piece it together like a puzzle over time, get your name, password, and account number, and then bingo, then they got it and they'll sell it.
So you had a very interesting perspective on phishing. Sending out phishing emails to employees. So you want to share your thoughts on what you think about that?
So Samsung always used to do phishing emails to employees. Everybody gets it. So I said, when I started providing the training for, I go, I don't want our employees to get it. So what I do, I'll always send out several times a month, a lot of times, especially if it's tax season, holidays, multiple emails about the latest phishing stuff going on, tax time, stuff like that. But again, I use Hulk as the introduction for it. And to do that, every time, then at Samsung, we started getting tests. Samsung HQ in Korea comes in, how come you guys score the lowest out of everybody? Because people are reading the stuff I put out about the latest threats, about phishing, how to avoid them and stuff like that. And it's just not, a lot of people, no matter what, you're not going to get 100%, correctness with phishing tests. Everybody falls for them. I don't care if you do it, I'll still have people fall for them. But the thing is they'll do it. Just my daughter the other day, Dad, I just opened an email. It was a phishing one, but she didn't click on anything. But she remembers because I'm teaching her at home too. And she goes, what should I do? She goes, I'm going to change my password. I go, she's learning. Change your password. Even though she didn't open anything in the email, she just opened the email. She didn't click any links, but she still changed her password. Just simple things like that. If you do that versus all these phishing tests that people fall for and they don't learn anything because a lot of times we don't follow up with it. And no, okay, you got in trouble because you clicked on that. Let them know why and tell them the consequences, with some other examples. And because of that, now at Mojo where I'm at, before I started, the CFO got dinged with a BEC scam. Since I came aboard, I trained everybody. Not one, not nothing. Everybody, Steve, is this phishing? I get so much response now. People go, hey, is this real or not? Is it phishing? Because no one falls for it because they actually pay attention now. Because
how did you help let them pay attention?
Oh, by the monthly emails or weekly emails bulletins, and because of Hulk leading it, they actually read it and look at it, and then they realize that, oh, this is phishing. And then when I do my training, I tell them how to look at it. If you're not sure, hover over it, to do it, or go to like Virus Total, put the link in there to see if it's bad or good or something like that. Do all things like that. And because people actually read my emails and my PowerPoints, that's the catch-all, because I know how to market it, so they read it, so that way they're aware. Versus ignore, oh, it's security, ignore it. And that's the problem. Everybody just reads it or just ignores it because it's from security. Same thing with the phishing test. They'll do it, okay, but they don't learn anything. That's the reason why I got to go that little step further, where I give them some real good examples. This is what could happen. This is how it affects you at work. This is how it affects you at your home life. If you fall for it, things like that. And I explain it to them. It's so much better response.
So do you have different training for executives and technical
Everybody's
people?
the same. Everybody's the same, because executives, they're actually the worst case, because a lot of times they'll give their admins their passwords and stuff like that, and sometimes the admin can't do it because she's got their own or he's got their own, so they'll write it down. So everybody gets the same. No one's exempt. Everybody gets the same training.
Okay. What about like the developers that need to know how to secure systems and things like that? Does that fall under your security?
Yeah, well, I helped them. So, like both places at Samsung and company now Mojo, I'm the one that helped write. I wrote the secure software development lifecycle process for them, policy. Did that, and then do pen and vulnerability scans for all of their systems all the time to help them out, and then put in a ticket system so they could also request anytime they have a new system that they want to scan to make sure that it was secure and stuff like that. And then just simple emails by, I got to do their training for this year 2020. I just say something. Remember to harden it. Don't use default username and passwords. Be smart about it. Things like that. Ask to have it scanned so that there's no vulnerabilities and things like that. And when you do it like that, by offering to help them, not saying, oh no, you got to do this, or security says you got to do that, they'll more than likely fall in line and say, hey Steve, can you help us with this, or how do I do that? Versus if I'm trying to force it on them and they ignore it, then it's a loss versus a win-win.
Sure. So what other tips before we close here would you have for the security awareness professional that's trying to make sure within their organizations that people are paying attention and following the right?
I would say try to keep up with the bad guys. In other words, every morning, 8:15, I have my calendar alert go off and read my latest threat. So I have a web page that's just all the latest feeds from NIST, CERT, Palo Alto Unit 42, everybody that has something, I get all the alerts to figure out, okay, is it going to affect something at work or would it just affect the employees? So I'm just trying to stay current with the latest stuff. I'm also a member of the FBI's InfraGard, I never can remember, NRCIC as well, in the Secret Service. So I get firsthand knowledge of a lot of this stuff. And then because of that, then I'll put it out right away. So that's how I try to do it. I try to get with the latest information, digest it to figure out, is it relevant or is it something I want to watch? And then that way, I'm trying to, like I said, stay that one step ahead of the bad guys. I think if we do that, we're making progress. The bad guys collaborate and share data and all this work together so much better than us good guys, because our work say, oh no, you can't do it because the press is going to, take it wrong or whatever, or they're afraid that's going to be, something going on. So we don't really share as much. So it's really on us then to figure out how to do it. If we could share things so that we have a template instead of having to start at the beginning. But if we just actually take the threats seriously and really, try to do that, be proactive and learn about them firsthand, and say, oh, you know what, this is going to affect work, or, it might just affect my employees during a holiday season or something. And then, like I said, when you look at it and you involve the employees, just not work, but say, hey, please pass on to family and friends. They'll listen to it 100% more, and they appreciate it because they realize that you're looking out after them as well. That's the big win, when the employees feel that you're really looking out after them.
So how do you decide what to share? Because in this day and age, when there's so much coming in, how do you decide what's really important, that maybe I should share this with everybody so that they're not turning off?
So if a lot of it is, if it's some type of phishing where I think if it's something affecting like Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or something like that, since all the younger employees use all those things nowadays, so then I'll put some phishing scams like that. Anything with BEC I'll do, because everybody's getting hit by those nowadays. Somehow they're doing it. Even us at our mojo, we get it all the time, but everybody goes, Steve, business employee compromise, where they supposedly comes from a C-level executive, and they fall for it.
Ask him to do a wire transfer.
Yeah, exactly. And I get so many now, and Steve, is this really from RC? And it's not. It's fake, and you tell by the way the heading is, where the email address really originates. So that's how I tell, is if it's going to affect work somehow, our bread and butter work, but it could affect the employees, their finances at home, or maybe their kids because of school type stuff. So that's the way I look at it. And if it's like somebody, they 10 million things got out there, Chase, let's say, got hacked, they got 10 million things, I'll just say change your password. They're going to get a notice that their accounts have been compromised already, but I'll just say make sure you do change your passwords, things like that, but I'll look at the things where I think people more of a tendency may fall for, because either it's work related or especially over the holiday or tax season right now, a lot of people might fall for the W-2 scams. And I know a company that didn't listen to it when I sent it to them, and the CEO or the CIO and the CISO were gone. They're in a big class action lawsuit because they didn't pay attention to it. But on the other hand, division at Samsung paid attention to it, or Austin Semiconductor, they didn't go, oh, Steve alerted us about this, and they ignored it, so they didn't fall for it. So simple things like that, take it serious. Don't ignore it, because you don't know who can fall for it.
Yeah. Very good advice, Steve, and it's been really a pleasure talking to you today, and thank you for your contribution to
Well, thank you for the book. I'm glad it's the number one, because I think people look at it and they go, even if they don't listen to everything, you might go about something. Just that one is worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cybereason is the champion for today's defenders, providing an endpoint security platform to prevent, detect, and respond to malicious operations on computers, mobile devices, servers, and the cloud. Cybereason. End cyber attacks from endpoints to the enterprise to everywhere. Learn more at cybereason.com/CISO stories.